What's up, guys? Tyler here. Fifth vlog entry. This video is mainly going to be about my favorite lure, one of my favorite lures, and that's one of my biggest go-to lures is a football head jig. First off, I'm just going to quickly clear up the difference between a football head jig and the standard grass jig. Now, the standard grass jig is going to have a cone-shaped head, allows it to penetrate grass, wood, brush piles and all that. Football head jig is not designed for that. It's a wider angled thing, so it hooks up. The heads will hook up into that weeds and the brush and whatever. So you're not going to want to fish this around heavier cover. But this head design is football head. It's a football design, so that's where it gets its name from. But you're going to be wanting to fish in this for hard bottom, rocky areas for the most part. I like to fish it points, secondary points, anything with rocky flats, anything with hard bottom, shell beds, all that. Anything with hard bottom. For the main reason is when this is coming over, dragging on the bottom for rocks, this will actually roll over the top of the rock. Okay, so what this is going to do is put the trailer up and look like a crawl in a defensive position. Them bass will smack that a lot of times when it's like that. But it also just rolls over the top of the rocks, does that. So, alright. So it's strictly a bottom dragging lure, not to be fished around heavy cover or sparse weed cover, whatever. But I prefer these with a recessed eye, mainly for line fray. You're going to want to check your line a lot in this technique every 10 to 15 casts or every time you catch a fish is what I like to do. But so there's three types of trailers I like to use with these, three styles of trailers, I should say. One is a pork frog. This is for my cold water techniques. This pork is going to give really natural, subtle presentation, not too much action, draws those inactive bass into hunger striking for the most part. It smells garlic, and it also has a lot of good feel to it, a really natural type of presentation. Another one is a bulky plastic type of presentation, and that's like my beaver. I got a brush hog, and I like to also fish with chigger craw, and that's just going to make it, this is mainly for midsummer when they're inactive a little bit, and I like to make it fall a lot slower, and it's a slower presentation. It's kind of the same idea as the pork, but it's in the summer and you want a little bit more action. Or if I'm fishing darker water for that reason, bulky presentation, unless I fish honing a little bit better. But for the most part, I'll be fishing this double grub. It's a light trailer. Falls through the water really nicely, really quickly, and it also emits a lot of action. Those legs will kick a lot of really good. But so there's three techniques I like to use when I'm fishing this way. First, let me say, always let the bait fall on slack line. Okay, cast it out. Don't engage it right away. If you engage it right away, what it's going to do is it's going to make that bait swing back to the boat, not necessarily towards the boat, towards the boat, but not necessarily at the boat, but it's going to make it swing. It'll take about 3 times longer to get to the bottom. Also, pendulum swing, and it doesn't give it as natural as a presentation as if it was falling straight down on slack line. So wait till you hit the bottom, then engage it. All right. But for the first presentation, this is my cold water, slow type of presentation. Cast it out, and just point the rod tip right at the lure, and just slowly crank it in. Don't pop it, nothing. Just straight reel it in. Even slower, stop it every once in a while, dead stick the thing. You can also sweep it back, and reel up slack, same presentation. But this is my cold water hunger strike type of thing. Simply fishing for inactive bass in this method. Now, this next technique is the polar opposite of that technique. It's called stroking a jig. Now, this one, you only want to use light trailers. Now, this double grub is a perfect example of that, and has a big part in this method. Now, I'm fishing 40 feet of water or more, and like a sunken road bed or a really deep bluff or something like that. But what you're going to do is use a really heavy jig. This is a ½ an ounce, but you use an ounce, 3/4 ounce, an ounce, to an ounce jig. This is going to make it fall really fast, get you down there quickly, and also the stroking part comes when you cast it out, let it hit the bottom. What you're doing is you're going to jerk your rod tip really hard once it hits the bottom. Now, the heavy jig is going to make it jump up and fall down as fast, if not the same amount as it goes up, it comes down at the same rate. Now, this will cause fish to bite out of reaction, and that's what you're mainly fishing for in this method. And just shines in really deep water, especially for those schooling fish. But the third technique is what I use for the most part, and that's about 10 to 20 feet of water, rocky points, rocky flats, and all that. Casting it out, dragging it back, and every time I feel a little tick or a little snag, something, pop it up, and that'll draw those fish to bite. When it's sitting in that defensive position, you're gonna want that bait to jerk away. It looks a lot like dart and crawfish. Those fish will attack it. There's just a few rules of thumb also when I like to use this. 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce is the basically this head sizes you want. Anything smaller than that, it's just gonna fall too slowly, and especially when you're fishing midsummer, that kind of defeats the whole purpose in my opinion. And you're gonna want a 7-foot, medium heavy, with a fast tip rod, casting for the heavier line, casting rod for the most part. I mean, you can use spinning equipment if you really want, but you can fish way more efficiently with this casting. High speed reel. Now, the fast tip is going to allow you to cast a lot further, what you need to keep that bait in the strike zone for the most part. High speed reel, for one reason being, when the fish hits or when you're popping out the bottom, you get a lot of slack in that line. Especially when the fish will hit really aggressively, it'll knock 2 to 3 feet, 4 feet of slack in your line. And, you can reel it up a lot quicker with a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel, and that's what you need, a really fast gear ratio reel in this type of method. I don't go lower than a 7-to-1. And 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon, always fluorocarbon in this method. Fluorocarbon or braid, if you fish in darker water, fish braid. I like to fish fluorocarbon always, just to keep it consistent, except for top water, but that's a different thing. But it gives it no stretch, great transmission to the back. You can pick up those really light bites. Okay, and setting the hook. This is the main thing. A lot of people I see do this wrong. All right, now when you're casting out, you're fishing really far out there, and a lot of times those fish will hit on that initial fall. So I like to set the hook in a sweeping motion rather than up over the top of my head. Now this is, when you set the hook on top of your head, imagine the line. When you set the hook, the line will bow a lot, cause a lot of slack in that line. And when that slack will correct itself, that fish will already have time to throw the hook. So when you're setting a hook like this in a sweeping method, you're pulling that line at a straight angle. The fish don't have time to react. It'll hook it right away. I like to fish it that way. It's all about preference, I guess, but this is the most efficient way I've found. But, okay, last quick rule. When you catch a fish, don't look at it, don't take a picture, throw it in a live well, cast it right back out there. A lot of times, especially in these deeper fish, will school up big time, and you'll get a lot of bites casting right back. I've caught 2, 3 in a row before, just casting right back to that same spot. Because once one bites, the whole school will fire up, and once you get a school of bass, you cannot waste time. You got to get your lure right back out there. But fill your boat up real quickly. Especially in tournaments, it's a big deal. But I'm gonna get going. Thanks a lot for watching. Please subscribe. Keep rating me. I love you guys for rating me high. Yeah. So I'm gonna get going. Peace out.